Friends, welcome to automationpub.com. You can find the automation tutorials with example code and practice websites for Selenium and Protractor in automationpub.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for getting notification on the new videos in your inbox directly. Also, reach to us to know more about the online training with Framework. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on to the next Java concept, which is called constructors. Now, what is a constructor? See, in Java, a constructor is a set of codes similar to the method. Okay, it is called when an instance of the class object is created. Constructor is a unique type of method that is used to initialize the object. Every time an object is created for class using new keyword, at least one constructor is called, which is a default constructor. So constructor is nothing but a default method that is called. Say I create a class. How I'll create a class. Now this class, learn constructor class, has two types of constructor. There are two types actually. One is default constructor, other one is parameterized constructor. Okay. Every class will have an inbuilt constructor, which is nothing but an inbuilt method. It just looks like a method, but with the same class name. See, I have created, this is the class, and I have created a method with the same class name. This is a constructor. But if I click, what is a method then? Public static void method. Fine. This is a method, but this is a constructor. So what is the difference? The constructor will have the same name as the class name. The class name of the class and the method, and the constructor will be same. So this is default constructor. Now what is parameterized constructor? Same constructor. With different arguments, just like method overloading. Fine. This is a method. These two are constructors. A constructor is a default method that is triggered whenever you call this object. Whenever you call this class object. This is called constructor overloading. Just like method overloading, I have two constructors here with different arguments. This does not have an argument. This has an argument. Now let's see how to use this constructor. I'll create one more class to call this constructor from. So I'm calling this constructor. Obviously, I'm creating a, okay, let me create. So now when I call the learn constructor, let me rename it as okay. Now I have a parent class and I have a child class. Okay. So this parent class has two constructors within it. Now this child class, from the child class, I'm calling the parent class. So let's say, let me print something in the default constructor. Okay. I'll just put here printing from the parameterized constructor, and I'm concatenating this ABC here. Right. So now I have two constructors in the parent class. One is a default constructor, other one is a parameterized constructor. Okay. What is the purpose of parameterizing a constructor or a method? To you reuse the code with the different test data. This is the test data for this string ABC is the test data that we need to pass for this constructor, just like a method overloading. Now I go to the child class. Now what I'll do is I'll just simply call this learn constructor parent. Learn constructor parent is come here. Okay. Let me extend it, inherit the properties of learn constructor first. Because I wanted to use the parent class, I'm extending it. Okay. See, I'm calling method one from parent constructor. Let's see, let's run this and see what is happening. See here, I have not called the constructor at all, but still it is printing from the default constructor. This is the statement that I am printing from the default constructor. Okay. See, printing from default constructor. I've just called the method one from this parent class, but still it has printed this, it has called in for this default constructor by default. So any given class, when it is called, when a method from a given class is called, always the first thing to execute is the default constructor. Okay. Okay, guys. So now, how do I call this parameterized constructor? I have to create an object for this class. So what is the keyword to create an object for this class? Let's see. I'll go here. This is a child class again. I'll create an object. How do I create the object? I'll create the parent. I'll create a object one. Guys, please go on mute. I am hearing noises. So this is my variable. This is my object, and I'm creating with the new keyword. So what is the class that I'm creating object for? I have to create that class name that you should give here. So this is the class name. Okay. Now this object must be declared with its type. So what is the type that it should hold? It should hold again the same class name type. It is holding a type of the same class name. So it gives the same class name. So now I have created an object for this learn constructor underscore parent class. Now let me call the parameterized constructor using this object. Okay. Okay. So now I am calling the, let's comment this first. Now when I create this object, maybe I'll forget about this. When I'm creating this object for this constructor, for this parent class, what happens is it will call in for the default constructor only. What is the default constructor? Default constructor is without any arguments here. So it will print from the default constructor. Now object 1.method1 will run default constructor. Okay, see, it has printed twice. Printing from the default constructor, printing from the default constructor. Okay, because I have created an object for that, so it is printing twice. Now, let's say I need to call the parameterized constructor. I need to call this parameterized constructor. So how I will call that? I'll create another object instance. But now I'll create with the parameterized value. Now this is this will call the default constructor, but now when I give the value for the string, it will call the parameterized constructor. See, this one, this constructor will be called now. Let me comment this. See, I'm calling the default constructor is by default, it is called always. And whenever an object is created, it will be called again. Now, ignore this first line. Go for the second line, printing from the parameterized constructor automationpub.com. So this automationpub.com is a parameterized test data that we have passed here to the user defined parameterized constructor. Do you understand, guys?
Yes.
Praveen, this is understandable, but why are we using constructor rather than method? The same thing can be done with using method also, right?
Okay. In real time, what happens is this acts as a template. Okay. In real time, constructors are used to initialize an object. Say, as I told you, what we have seen in interface, if a tester forgets to implement a method, then it will create errors, right? Likewise, we are going to see page object model framework where the objects has to be initiated whenever there is a test case called in for. So that initialization will happen within the constructor as a standard. Okay. What is the purpose of a constructor? It is utilized to initiate the objects. That's it. What if the So this will act as a template. You can create a template to the testers and create and give it to them, so they can use this as template and just write the test cases by creating methods. So this will form as a template. Okay, to initialize the objects. Say there are say 5 to 10 objects that needs to be initiated. Okay, so in that case, this will act as a template that the tester can use. Fine.
Still, it's only vague, Praveen. Actually, when we use it, then only I'll be able to understand. Like, I'm able to understand the concept, what and all you're telling. But yeah, when we implement this, then only it will be more clear.
You will see the implementation in that framework. For now, you can learn only the concepts. So just understand the concept where you are. I mean, how it works. The actual
that is clear.
implementation we'll see in the framework.
Sure.
Okay. So with respect to any any questions with respect to understanding, we can discuss now at this point. If I tell you the framework and the framework example now, it will create a lot of confusion for you. So any doubts on the concepts, how constructor works?
Okay, Praveen. Public class learn constructor underscore parent is a class. Okay.
Correct.
So anyway, if we are declaring or writing any code for any or generating any method inside this class, if we create an object for this class, say learn constructor underscore parent object name equal to new constructor. Okay.
Correct.
So here also the constructor is by default it is getting generated, right? So why are we specifying the constructor inside this this class? That is what I'm asking.
See, by default you don't have to declare this default constructor at all. Okay. By default it gets triggered, no matter whether you create an object like this for the default constructor or not. See, here you have created. Okay, let's go for another example. Let me only call method 1. Okay. I have a default constructor here. Still, this default constructor will be called. I'm not creating any object for the constructors. Okay. Let's run this method 1 alone. See, it is still printing from the default constructor, because no matter you have to create, no matter whatever, whether you create an object for default constructor with this line, it will still always call the default constructor. Always it will be default constructor. You don't have to.
So now the real-time
example
can be seen like
create
this.
Now initiate your object.
Just before executing any test case, what we are doing is
let me give you
initializing the Chrome driver. We are triggering the browser, right?
We are initializing the
Let's use the web driver
triggering the Chrome driver. So this WebDriver initialization can be done within the constructor, which is a generic initialization. So when I go back here, say this is my learn constructor underscore parent is the default constructor. Okay. Now what I am doing is, see, this is what I am doing. I am initializing the Selenium WebDriver to trigger the Chrome driver. So I am initializing the driver variable. By default, this is getting initialized in the default constructor. Okay. Now I am already inheriting this in the child class. I am inheriting the learn constructor underscore parent from the call constructor underscore child, right? So now I have I'm directly giving the code, okay, not the entire code. I'm directly giving the code to trigger, because this driver object is already initialized in the constructor. Fine. Let me put a log. Okay, so this is my default constructor, and I'm initializing that here, and I'm calling just the driver variable here in the child classes. Are you able to get it? Are you able to get it?
Yeah.
You're just inheriting the properties of parent class, right?
Correct. I am inheriting the properties of the parent class from the child class, and when I call the parent class, when I call a method here from the parent class, by default, this default constructor will be triggered. No matter whether you are creating an object or not, it will be triggered by default whenever a method from a class is called. Okay. So this parent class has what? This parent class default constructor has the driver initialized with the variable driver. Okay, so now I am using this driver variable in the child class to navigate to the website and then maximize it and so on. Are you able to understand? Now let me trigger this. I'll run the child class. Let's see what it is printing. See, printing from the default constructor, initializing Chrome driver from the default constructor, and then it goes to the web page, automationpub.com. The code for triggering the URL automationpub.com is present in the child class. This is one real-time scenario. Are you able to understand?
Yes.
Sendil, Srinivas?
Yeah. Yes, Praveen.
Sendil, how about you?
Yeah, understandable.
Okay, let me know if I need to explain it again. I'll do it. Okay, fine. So I'll anyways explain it once again. So to reiterate, I have two classes. In the first one is parent class, other one is a child class. Okay. So parent class is learn constructor underscore parent. Child class is call constructor underscore call learn constructor. I'm sorry, call constructor underscore child. Fine. So for parent is learn constructor underscore parent. Child class is call constructor underscore child, where there are two types of constructor. One is default constructor, other one is a parameterized constructor, where I am initializing the driver variable from the default constructor. Any given class, any method from a given class is called then the default constructor for the class will be automatically triggered. So that is what we have seen here. In this default constructor, we have initialized Chrome driver, and this Chrome driver will get automatically triggered when we call the method from this parent class. That's coming to the child class. We are calling the method 1 from the parent class. Okay. Always the constructor is used to initialize variables. Okay. Now, how do we use different types of constructor? How do we create object for different types of constructor? For default constructor, you don't have to create an object. By default, it will be triggered. Now, this is a parameterized constructor which has a parameter here. So this concept is called as constructor. I mean, this is a parameterized constructor, and I can have one more constructor as well. See, I can have one more constructor. Now I am overloading this constructor with two parameters. This is constructor overloading, just like method overloading. What is a method overloading? Method with the same name having different arguments is called method overloading. Similarly, a constructor with different constructor with more than one constructor with the same name and different arguments is called constructor overloading. Fine. So I can instantiate this constructor and this constructor separately by creating an object instance. Let me go to the child class now. So this is how I create this is just an object created for default constructor which is not needed. This is how I create an object for the parameterized constructor with one variable. Now I'll create a object instance for the other constructor which has two arguments. Okay, see, it is not throwing error. Let's see how it is getting triggered now from the parameterized constructor and I. Okay, so I'm concatenating these two variable values here. Let's see. I'll just comment this. I'll create object 1. I'll call this object 1 dot. I'll retrieve the method name. Okay, I'll comment all this. Now let's see. See here. See, anyway, the default constructor will be called. So that is why it is printing from the default constructor. So what we have defined in a default constructor, we have triggered the Chrome browser. So this is happening anyways. Okay, you have not created an object for it. It is happening anyways. Now this is where we have to start looking out for our output. Printing from parameterized constructor 1 automationpub.com. Because I have created an object for the first parameterized constructor. Now let me comment this and let me create an object for the second parameterized constructor. I'll comment this again, object 2 dot method 1. Let's run this. So the default constructor is getting triggered. See now, printing from parameterized constructor 2 automationpub.com and the integer is 6 is what we have created given here. Fine, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, bro.
Fine, Chandal?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Go to that code, main code.
Okay.
Create instance is I. You are not using variable here, right?
I can initiate the variable here also. See, I can just, I'll cut this and I'll paste it in this constructor and I'll say that from parameterized constructor 2. Okay. So if I execute this, still it'll trigger. Yes, please go on mute.
Praveen?
Yeah, still it is executing. See this? Because what I've done is I've initialized the object from the default constructor, parameterized constructor 2. Okay, Sandal?
Praveen?
Yes, Paramesh.
Method 1 is a static method, right?
Sorry?
Method 1.
Yes, it is a static one, yeah.
So we can call it through instance also, object reference variable.
Sorry?
Using reference variable, we can call it.
Yeah, we can call this because it is static, right? You don't need an object reference, but you can still.
I am asking with creating object reference also we can call it, right?
We can call it. See, it is a static, right? So I have removed the object reference. Okay, I have removed the object reference. Still, it will run because it is static. Okay. See, still it is triggering, right? It's a pass. So let me make it non-static. Let me remove the static keyword of that method. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I need a object reference. Fine. See. Now I'll trigger it again. See. Fine.